This is a video being made for a final project for SBU course, Instructional Material Design and Application. Project objectives, we were to design a unit that would go a week long that integrated technology best practices using TIP and TPAC models. This is what I decided to do. And I actually did teach this unit and course, and I'll share more about that towards a little bit later. This was a 6th grade health class. It was done in a one-to-one environment. First time this has been done, paperless. All teaching was done in a blended learning environment, and it was all 6th grade boys. At my school, I happen to teach all the 6th grade boys at the school. The items that we taught, and the one I'm going to focus on, is structure and function of the body, the Missouri grade level expectation, GLEs, things like muscular system, body systems is basically what that covers. This video also addresses the implication of TIP and TPAC lesson models. And I also took surveys to see effectiveness of the unit and of the course overall. I'll share those as well. All right, TPAC technology used. The main one is Moodle. Moodle is a learning management system. It's very similar to Angel, only it's free. It's also hosted in this case, by my local school district. Moodle allows a teacher to give assessments that are automatically graded in real time. Students can get their feedback right away. That's really important, and you'll see why in just a minute. It allows students to turn in assignments online. It's a really neat thing. It's very easy to use. I've been using it for, I don't know, maybe 7 years now. It's a good tool. I made YouTube videos kind of similar to this one, and you can see them if you just follow my channel from this movie. And that's what I used for direct instruction. I did no direct instruction at all. Everything was done through YouTube, and I'll explain that in just a moment. I used an audio recording tool called Audacity. I allowed students to make podcasts in the particular project for this unit. Other side I use is Study Stack. Whenever I build a unit, the first thing I do is put terms and definitions in Study Stack, and it creates a really great study review tool for the students where they can play games. It also creates a really nice data set for me to work off of when I'm creating things like videos and such. If you haven't been to it, go to it, Study Stack, Quizlet, which you might have heard of. It's very similar to that. And the last thing I use is Blogger. I have a blog. And I put students' work on here and reflections on how things go in class. The content addressed, so the content addressed, was again the grade level expectations. An example of this is to classify the 3 types of muscle tissue and differentiate between voluntary and involuntary muscles. I think there's maybe 10 to 12 GLEs that were addressed overall in the body systems unit. Pedagogy. So here's kind of my thought process behind this. I did YouTube for direct instruction, and then I had students take a quiz in Moodle. This is level 1, depth of knowledge, just introductory, just recall, basic kind of stuff, but I'm introducing information here. Instead of having students take notes and me lecture, this is much more effective. Again, there's a lot of talk about flipped classroom. I think there's a lot of strength to that. I also think that there's a lot of strength to doing it actually in class. Students would watch a YouTube video when there was a red check mark in the corner that told the student that this was a GLE or this was an assessment time. They'd go to the quiz item in Moodle, and they'd answer a question that dealt directly with the GLE, what they just saw. If they answered correctly, that told me they understood what they just saw. If they answered incorrectly, that told me that they didn't. Moodle will then grade it question by question, answer by answer, and I can get real-time data on what they do and don't understand, and I can go back and reteach instantaneously right away individual students or class. Very powerful tool. Next, for this particular unit, the reinforcing activity I used, I had them create commercials or some kind of goofy thing using Audacity, level 4 depth of knowledge, because they were creating new content using what they had learned. I then put these audio clips into a YouTube video and created kind of a podcast. I was able to also put this on the blog and share it with parents and that kind of stuff. We had a lot of fun with it. It was a really good way to reinforce the GLEs. Our building has writing goals. We have a constructive response based on a GLE. With every assignment I allow them to choose one they do, but they do have to use the RAP method, which is what our language arts folks use. And so I try to reinforce that. And again, that'd be level 3 depth of knowledge. Finally, for everyone, there was a summative assessment. I think a lot of times, sometimes in health, there's not necessarily as much assessment as in other classes. I think it's really important to do for every unit because I think you have to know that the students learned what you taught them. If you don't know that, you just don't know. I mean, you need to assess to find out what it is. Moodle, by the way, allowed students to see what they scored on their assessments right away. I also did give a final after everything that included questions from every assessment. The guys did a good job. 80% was the class average on that. Okay, so usually a lot of times health is taught sometimes a day at a time, sometimes a week at a time, sometimes 2 weeks at a time. I decided when the weather was bad to go in for a month at a time. I did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to you wouldn't teach algebra 1 week at a time or 1 day at a time. I thought there was a lot of continuity to be gained, a lot of synergy to be gained from teaching things straight through. Second, and this was the biggest thing that I found from this, is you don't have to reestablish classroom norms if you're bringing them in that you would normally if you're bringing them in a week or 2 weeks at a time. They just, after the first week, they got the routines, and there was really no classroom. I mean, there wasn't any classroom management issues. And again, these are all 6th grade boys learning health when they would otherwise be in PE. Very impressed by that. Again, there was no direct instruction. I think there's another strength of it. I think a lot of kids this age and younger, their entertainment is YouTube. They like to watch other people play video games and talk about it on YouTube. Why not leverage that? Even if it's me on YouTube, me on YouTube is probably more interesting than me standing in front of them talking. It allowed them to work at their own pace too. They could pause, rewind, all that good stuff if they had a question about something. Instead of telling them, I tell them to go back and watch the video because all the information they needed was in there. And then the Moodle check for understanding, where they were taking the quiz as they were watching the video. Again, very powerful tool. I not only do I know what they do and don't know from that initial thing, I can prove it because I'm getting information right away. It's not just, I think they got it, or maybe they got it, or maybe 4th hour I did a really good job, but 6th hour not as so well. It's powerful. Second, the reinforcing activity, then this can be really anything you want to do. Sometimes it was a web quest for me. Sometimes it was just a discussion. Sometimes it was a neat little project. But in this case, it was from a technology standpoint, it was Audacity. Constructive response should be done every time. Summative assessment using Moodle. Again, I gave quizzes at the end of every unit, and I gave a final at the end too. This is the biggie, activity charts. So the kids were not in PE for maybe 5 weeks, and there's a concern with that. So what do? Well, ultimately, if the kids are translating what they're doing in school to home, it's a very strong thing, right? That's really what we want them to do. So what I did was I gave them a list of things that they could do, and they had to do 5 of them a week and have it signed off. It could be anything from a practice, because I'm a coach. I value practices, and I think they're good workouts. So if they did that would count for one of those days. They could do 100 reps of something, like push-ups, for example, and they could do that over the course of a day. So I told them, and they even were doing 10 push-ups before and after class. They get it knocked out by the time they went home. They could play one of the Wii Fit or Xbox Connect or whatever it was. They could do that as well, or they could go running or something like that. I got a lot of good feedback from that, and I'm going to show you that here right now. So I asked the parents some questions. 71 of them got back to me. 56% said they saw their son exercising more than usual, which again I think is great, especially when it gets dark out and it's easy to sit in front of the TV or iPad or whatever it is. So 56% more. This I thought was really neat. 30% said they exercise more as a family. So how good is that? The student comes home, says, "Hey, my teacher wants me to do this," and the parents go, "Hey, you know what? We have to do it too. Why don't we just go for a run or a walk together or whatever it is?" So I had a lot of that. I thought that was really neat. Had a lot of comments like this, a lot of positive ones. Again, we were doing it in the cold, but they were happy to see him pushing this and doing this at home as well. So that was another positive thing. All right, I also asked my students to get their feedback. I had 122 of them responded. 75% said they would rather be in health for one straight month or whatever it works out to be approximately, instead of breaking it up. These next two I thought were really, really interesting as well. 82% said they'd rather learn from watching YouTube than lecture or discussion style, traditional. Now, I want to note, it's not 82% would rather watch YouTube. They would rather learn this way, as opposed to lecture or discussion style of teaching. Again, it's really for a lot of those reasons where they have control over the content. That you give them the best. They don't have the best of you, your best direct instruction. They don't have to wait for the three kids who don't get it. They can just keep going at their own pace. And I really think, seeing this, that there's something, if this really is the case, and I know this is a small sample group, but if there's, I'm sure it's somewhat representative of some other bigger points, that maybe it's worth looking at doing something like this. Again, flipped classroom's great, but I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it in class either. 94% they would rather do some assignment online. This was a thing that really was interesting to me, as opposed to doing textbook or worksheets. Now, this doesn't mean that they're online playing games all the time. They're doing research. They're doing web quests. Sometimes they were doing things very similar to what you would do in a worksheet. They were just doing it online through Moodle. And 94% of them said they would rather do this. Again, very interesting. So that's the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to put it down in the forum discussion. And thank you for listening.